Good morning, this is Anna from North East Animal Rights. It's Mother's Day coming up next week, so we thought we'd look at the hardest working mum, okay, and scary dairy. What is scary dairy? So let's talk about an industry where we think it's okay to drink the breast milk of another species, which is meant for its babies. Okay, so this is a very, very good, and it's kind of like back to front with the reading, with the words, but you can actually see what's going on here, okay? This is saying cut out the middleman. So cut out the middleman, going straight to, you're actually drinking the breast milk of another species. So let's do some fact checks, okay? So cows have to be pregnant to produce milk in the first place. It's not rocket science, but actually a lot of people don't actually understand that, you know. I kind of didn't get it because you just assume the milk's always there, but it isn't. You know, they have to be pregnant to produce the babies, and they have to be have given birth to the babies to have the milk there. Okay, they're artificially inseminated. The cows, these mothers who love their babies and have the babies taken away from them, they're artificially inseminated over and over again. If you want any information on artificial insemination and the dairy industry, look it up. Look at Viva. Just Google it. It's hiding in plain sight. It's all there. It's not only unnatural, but it's very cruel and unsavoury. There's a couple of ways of actually getting the semen from the bulls in the first place, and it's an awful way of inseminating, a beautiful creature like a cow as well. Okay. Now, another thing is that people think that cows, they enjoy being milked. They go trotting happily, they get the call. Those who are lucky enough to be in the fields to get the call to go in, and they all go in trotting happily to be milked. They don't, okay? They go on because they've been trained and conditioned, okay? They're trained and conditioned to go in to be milked, and they get relief from being milked. The udders are really, really heavy, okay? They're in a lot of discomfort, and they want to get rid of that milk, and that's the pleasure they get of it. But it isn't pleasure, it's just relief. Okay. Now, they are artificially overproducing milk as well. The cows were not producing milk, in the field in the olden days, before factory farming started. It's it's really, really difficult to understand how many things have changed since then. Now around 5 to 6 year old, they're too knackered. These beautiful cows are too knackered to go to produce more babies, so they end up getting thanked for their service by going to slaughter. Now, farmers, when farmers say they love their animals, okay, this is another fallacy, okay, it's another fact check. Farmers, what I would say is farmers have a very difficult job. That's without a shadow of a doubt they do, okay. It's a thankless job. It's a very, very difficult job. It's a job which, you're working out on all the elements and everything, but they certainly don't love their animals, okay. I love members of my family. I love members, I love the companion animals and the rescue animals I have. I certainly wouldn't send them off to be bolt gun stunned, to be shackled by the leg and then have the throats cut for them to bleed out. That's not love, okay? And I'm not trying to alienate farmers, because we want them to talk to us about options which are available, viable options which don't include killing animals. I would say farmers have a respect for animals. Most of them do, and they have an acceptance that these animals, because they need to make money from them, they have an acceptance that they will be killed. But let's not confuse that with love. It's respect and acceptance. It is not love, okay? We have come across some shocking footage from farm workers, like undercover stuff and everything, and we know there's an awful lot of things go on. I would hope that's in the minority, but the reality is it happens, and the fact that it happens at all shows you that the respect issue is a massive problem, and it's certainly not love in any shape or form. Now, whichever way if you have free range or organic cows, they are they end up in the same slaughterhouse on the kill floor, exactly the same. So if you have you have a spa in your field, you're giving your massaging your cows in essential oils, they are still being slaughtered in exactly the same way as the factory farmed ones. Okay, so again, let's be clear about this. These cows in the dairy industry, free range, organic, factory farmed, they'll all end up dead, and they end up dead in a very short space of time, not in their natural lifespan. I want to show you a couple of slides here I've got a couple from Surge and a couple from and one from Viva as well. This one is from Surge, and what it's showing you is a natural cow. This is how much milk it would produce, but this is how much milk it's actually been they've been genetically modified to produce. Okay, so you can see that this is going to cause a strain on this cow. You can see on here that udder's absolutely massive. Okay, and these ones, they're natural cows. They're just producing the milk for their own babies. These are producing the milk for our babies, for our adults, for our humans. Okay, and this one about the lifespan as well. Now this is from Viva. It's called "Are You a Baby Eater?" and it shows you in a very simple way. The circle is the lifespan of the actual animal in the wild, and the red bit is the actual lifespan of the animal when we use them. So you can see the cows on the bottom here. You have dairy cows here, right? Dairy cows literally have, there's no red line at all, because these are the male calves. They are literally shot straight away. You know, within 48 hours, that's the usual fate for these animals. Veal calves, if they, you know, a male calf, if they decide they're going to send them for veal, 1 to 32 weeks. That is the tiny little line there. That's their lifespan. That's actually what they have against the natural lifespan, which is this. And we have dairy cows here, right? Dairy cows. So this is their natural lifespan here, and this bit here is the actual lifespan when they are farmed for milk. Okay. Again, another one here from Surge. Full circle is their natural lifespan. This tiny little bit here is what they actually get. Very similar to Viva's, right? So, you know, we have an industry here, the dairy industry, which is subject to massive bailouts. One of the things which everybody was up in arms about in the animal rights industry and in the movement over the lockdown was the fact that the government were pouring massive bailouts into the dairy industry. Now, this is an industry which is failing. Everybody knows it's failing, okay? The farmers know it's failing, the government knows it's failing, yet they will keep on pumping money into it, okay? There's obviously lots of reasons, political reasons, why they are still pumping money into it, and they're not supporting, you know, other industries. You know, the steel industry, they basically let that go to the, you know, they put so much money in it, that was it. They cut it dead. They're not doing this with the dairy industry. They are keeping on putting money into it. They were arguing left, right and centre about, you know, how they're going to support small businesses and furlough and everything in the pandemic, yet they were still, behind the scenes, pumping money into dairy, okay? It's fundamentally wrong. Now, what happens to the babies they produce? So we've got the fact that these animals have to be pregnant to produce milk. Then they have to, you know, they have the baby taken off them. So what happens to these babies? Now, if the mother gives birth to a female calf, okay, that lucky calf will be separated from her mother within 48 hours, okay? It'll have the initial bit of milk with a colostrum in, if it's very, very lucky. Colostrum is rich with nutrients meant for the baby to have from its mother, to help it have like a growth spurt when it's born. But it'll be taken off within in 48 hours. And it'll be separated. Sometimes they put in, and you know, people have seen these horrendous little containers they put in. Sometimes they're on fields, you know, but they can hear each other. They're on the same farmer's land. The mothers can hear the babies can hear their mother, and it's awful. It's absolutely awful. Imagine having your baby taken away from you. If the cow is male, if the animal is male, it's usually shot at birth, like I mentioned, within 48 hours, or it's sent for veal for slaughter, usually at the age, you know, up to 32 weeks. So it's still a baby. In terms of its natural lifespan, it's still a baby, okay? If it's going to be kept for beef, again, it's going to be kept for 1 to 2 years old. 2 years old is, you know, a tenth of its natural lifespan. So again, it's not even an adult. It's just a young, you know, maybe a teenager we're classed as, and that's what we are doing. We are treating these young animals absolutely dreadfully. Now, I've just got a couple of pictures here. This one is, I don't know if you can see this this tag here. This kind of goes back to the farmers saying that they love the animals, you know. Now this little tag on here, this is on a field tree when I was away in Penrith. It actually says nasty, okay. So this is another indicator of how animals are treated by farmers, okay. This animal clearly doesn't, you know, has a bit of spirit about it, doesn't want to be prodded and poked, doesn't mean to be told what to do. That's fair enough, you know, it has its own mind, clearly it has its own mind, but because of that, the farmer has labelled it nasty, okay? This is how many, so again, back to front, but 95,000 male calves classed as trash by the industry, okay, and they are killed, right? 95,000 animals every single year. Right now, there are changes afoot, okay? In theory, you would think it is good. There are good changes, right? Because the new welfare rules coming in at the end of 2021. Now, I'm always dubious about welfare because welfare, as I've mentioned before, it's not the same as rights. Rights is looking after the animal, stopping exploitation, all of it, okay? The animals don't get killed. Welfare means looking after it, giving it a tickle, you know, massaging it until it actually gets killed. Welfare means nothing, okay? The animals end up dead, and now these new welfare rules, which are coming in the end of this year, means that farmers have to stop killing male calves. How are they going to do this? Now, they've obviously been experimenting with this. It's been happening for a while on a small scale, but they're now being told that they have to use sexed semen. Okay, so you know you may have seen something similar with the baby chicks in the news as well. That in Germany they've tried to do that as well. But you know what? It's still not addressing the fundamental fact here is that it's wrong to eat animals. It's wrong to eat cows. It's wrong to eat eat the bodies, and it's also wrong to take their breast milk, which is meant for their babies. You know, I don't know how many times I can say this in different ways, but that's what it is. You know, and it's monkeying around with genetics. You know, there's so many things that could be put in the science, you know, to better effect, rather than sitting there, you know, sort of like creating ways of literally creating one sex of an animal, you know, and making sure you can exploit that animal to its fullest extent. Now, we're going to do a little bit of a health check now. Milk contains a lot of hormones. You know, imagine that, like I said, the growth hormones, the colostrum, which is from recently birthed cows. You know, we're getting all those growth hormones in. We're getting all the vaccinations that animals had, and antibiotics and everything as well. It's you know, so that's what you're drinking when you're drinking milk. And the majority of milk is taken from recently birthed mothers who have loads of with growth hormones. Yes, Leslie, it's always wrong to mess around with genetics. There's so many better ways they can use the talents than messing around with genetics, which hurt animals. But do you want your children drinking these? You know, do you really want your children drinking this milk, which was full of all these things? The British Journal of Cancer found that vegans have a much lower level of growth hormones than vegetarians or meat eaters. Obviously, you would think that's obvious that they're going to find that. World Health Organization asks why those who drink the highest amount of cow's milk, which is the Northern Europe and the US, these kind of like the Western diet, why we have the highest levels of osteoporosis. You know, we are always told that osteoporosis, you know, is caused by a lack of calcium. But we are one of the biggest milk drinkers, and you know, and cheese and chocolate and things like that. We are the biggest consumers of milk. So how does that compute? It doesn't work out. You know, childhood illnesses like obesity, asthma, acne are all linked to dairy. I think you heard Kevin talk a couple of weeks ago when he had the lovely Freddie on, saying that he had asthma, and his asthma stopped pretty much, you know, very, very quickly when he stopped having dairy. How can you tell your child to drink up this milk knowing that it's going to cause all these things and knowing what it actually contains as well? And adults don't fare any better. You know, dairy's linked to Crohn's disease, gallstones, cancers, arthritis, because we're eating something and drinking something which is not meant for us. The World Cancer Research Fund says that a Western diet which is rich in dairy and meat is classed as a contributing factor in 30 to 50% of cancers. So meat and two veg doesn't seem so appealing now, does it? Now, all these things that people say that we should have, again, as a part of a healthy diet, calcium, protein, iron, you know, all of these which the dairy industry are telling us are in cow's milk, okay, and they are, okay, you can get them in plants which have, you know, no animals killed, a totally cruelty-free way of getting all these things. And things like kale actually has more milligrams of calcium per 100 grams than cow's milk does, okay? It actually has 250 milligrams of calcium per 100 grams. Cow's milk has 110, so more than double. Yep, that's exactly right, Kevin. Get your calcium from kale, not the pale. That's going to be our new logo. But you know, iron, vitamins, all those things, you know, just Google vegan sources of calcium, you know, whatever you're looking for. Look at Viva Health. They have done a fantastic load of leaflets. Things like this, you know, where do you get your protein from? All these protein-rich foods, you know. They've done some fantastic posters. There's a brilliant one here on calcium, okay? And it goes into a lot of detail. They've done some absolutely brilliant studies here, right? I mean, I know it's all about the front, it's all tiny little words, you can't see it, but you know what it is? There's absolutely loads of information there, scientific, probably properly peer-assessed information about the health benefits of not drinking cow's milk, okay, rather than drinking it. Now, you know, I mentioned before that obviously these cows have been genetically modified. 30% of dairy cows have mastitis. It's a very painful infection. Any of you mothers out there who've breastfed and have had mastitis will know it's an awful, awful pain, very, very painful. It creates dead skin cells, pus and blood, which goes into the milk. Okay. Now the legal limit. So bear in mind, we actually have a legal limit we are allowed to put into milk to sell for consumers to pass on to their children to drink. The legal limit is 400 million pus cells per litre of cow's milk. So in a litre, which is about that big, you're going to have 400 million pus cells, right? And you really still think this is healthy? One of the first things we're taught as kids is drink your milk if you want to go big and strong. It's good for your bones and your teeth. Yeah, cow's milk is perfect if you're a cow. Now, things like lactose intolerances and allergies. The lactose is the sugar. It's the sugar in cow's milk, okay? And your body can't tolerate the lactose. Allergies is where your body can't tolerate the protein in cow's milk. There's a common denominator here. You shouldn't be drinking and taking something which is not meant for you. That's why you're allergic to them. That's why you're intolerant to them, because you shouldn't be using them. From my personal point of view, when I went vegan, I work in a school, so you kind of like pick up infections, quite a lot of time. And I found that when I went vegan, that any colds I got went very, very quickly. They didn't last very long. And also, they didn't go in my chest either. So the kind of like the mucousy stuff you're getting from all the horrible stuff which is in milk goes. It really does go. And I'm seeing some really great some comments here coming up as well. I'm going to go on to that, Kevin, very shortly about reformed, because there are other ways to do it as well. Now, environmental check here. Animal agriculture is the second biggest cause of pollution to the planet after air travel. Currently, with reduction in flights and things, obviously with the pandemic, it will have moved up to the top. But we have countries with starving people, yet we are growing grain for animals to eat, to be killed, for us to eat. Where is the sense? Where's the common sense in that? Why don't you just grow the grain for the people to eat, right? Rather than having like a middleman, which is the cow, and all that pain and suffering and bad health and everything in the middle of it as well. It's just ridiculous. Now, vegans often have thrown at them that soya production is a massive cause of deforestation. It's true, soya is a big cause of deforestation. It's not the only cause of it, because animal agriculture on its own, the fact that they're farming, the beef farms in the Amazon, excuse me. But the majority of soya is actually produced for animal food, for chickens, for cows. The fact that the soya which is produced for human consumption is considerably smaller, so it's not a big cause of deforestation. And I always say as well, when you're having things like plant milks and everything, don't just stick to one, because you're causing a massive, like a big demand in one area. Try other things as well. Now, the morality check now, let's have a look at the moral part of it. We've talked about the facts, we've talked about the health part of it, and the environmental part of it now. So we're looking at morality, okay? Now, just because I've always done something doesn't say we have to always do this, okay? I mentioned earlier that, from the 1950s, kind of like after the Second World War, it was a massive boom in factory farming. Before then, it was kind of, people had a couple of cows, they looked after them, they lived longer, it wasn't intensive, still animals got killed, but it was nothing on the scale of, the brutality which happens on a daily basis now. We used to put children up chimneys, we used to think that was okay. We used to, put coal on fires and all the environmental aspects for that, but we don't do that now. We used to, people used to say cigarette smoking was healthy for you, but we don't do that now. So why are we still saying that it's good and healthy to drink milk, right? It's not. It isn't right. Now, a lot of us have seen there's a lot of graphic footage around the dairy industry, and graphic footage works for some and it doesn't work for others. It worked for me, although our group does not sort of like rely on the graphic type of thing usually, unless there's a very good reason for it. But the graphic footage worked for me because I saw a dairy cow, obviously very young, going to slaughter, and the full slaughter process. And I thought, I was kind of thinking, I'm vegetarian, I'm not contributing to the direct death of a cow. I am. What I'm doing is I'm prolonging that life, okay, in a life of abject misery, and then the cow is getting killed, okay. Now, the type of images I'm talking about, they're not graphic. They are just very, very sad. The things like, with calves with their nose spikes up to stop them drinking the mother's milk, where they are kept closer. Calves are alone, who are bellowing for the mothers, and the mothers who are bellowing for them, in separate fields. Mothers running after the truck, when the babies are being taken away. Now, loads of people have seen, you know, the footage of there's one particular one where there's a cow absolutely charging after a truck with its baby in, you know. Can you imagine you've built up your bond with your baby and then literally 48 hours that baby's being taken away, there's no logic to it at all, and you never see that baby again, and then very quickly you are impregnated and the whole process starts again. The absolute, you know, the mental torture these beautiful animals go through. Now, there's also, you know, that when I added the saves as well, and the saves are, I always try not to make eye contact with the animals because these animals are absolutely terrified, and again, they're not graphic images, it's just awful. It's just, you feel like you're utterly betraying these animals. The more graphic images you can see are, you know, where the downer cows where they've literally just collapsed through exhaustion and they just get shot or they just die. They're just left to die where they are. Cows being shackled, where their legs are put together because they can't, they're shackled with chains because they've given birth so many times, all the muscles and the body is not working properly. So they have to keep them together that way. I mean, you know, imagine the brutality of that's your everyday work in practice. You have to shackle a cow because it's been so badly abused. Cow is being stunned with a ball gun at the head, and then they're getting shackled by one leg. And even this sort of thing, I was kind of thinking that the cows are getting pulled up, you know, and then, but they're not, they're getting dragged up by one leg. Everything else is hanging around, splaying, and then the throats are cut and they're bled out. And a lot of the times these stuns don't work. A lot of the time they are alive when they're bleeding out. They can see what's going on around them, they're twitching. And even more horrible, sometimes these cows are actually pregnant as well. So the cows are dying, and there's a live baby inside of it. Now, you know, we currently consume, you know, cow's milk and camel's milk and sheep and buffalo and goats. You know, these are the animals we abuse. But if we had a dog, if somebody suddenly created a dog farm where we were going to start drinking dog milk, there would be absolute uproar. That's because dogs, you know, we love dogs, we keep them, we take them into our homes and our hearts. But why can't we do the same with cows? I'm not saying take them into your house, but, you know, take them into your hearts. They're the same, they have the same capacity. Now, vegetarians, I don't want to make this a vegetarian bashing sort of outreach, because I was a vegetarian from the age of 14 to 10 years ago. And I was absolutely oblivious to the sort of the devastation that I was part of. But if you think you are doing enough and you're doing your bit, you're just not. You're really not. You're still contributing to this awful, awful industry. The industry which is dying. The fact that it's being bailed out by the taxpayer, yourself, you are paying for this to be perpetuated, and the awful abuse these animals go through. Okay, it doesn't take much research. I mean, I will say again, don't always, you know, you don't have to take what I'm saying for gospel. You know, look it up, do your own research, and check it out yourself, because it's all there. All the information is there. Now, finally, I've got a couple of other slides somewhere. You know, again, another ethical one. You know, all this big outcry about the badger cull, okay, about all these hundreds of thousands of badgers being legally culled, okay, a once protected species which is indigenous to the UK. You know, we have agreed that it is okay to kill these animals. Why? Because there is this tiny remote possibility, which actually has been disproved by many, many scientists over and over again, that they pass on bovine TB to cows, which means the farmers cannot make their money from these cows. So if you are buying milk, you know, and you love badgers, you are directly contributing to their deaths as well. So that's another ethical thing for you to think about. Now, the choice of plant milks available now is absolutely phenomenal. You know, when you go out and buy cow's milk, you're talking about, you might be able to find goat's milk, maybe one type of, you know, half a dozen types of cow's milk. But actually these ones here, this is Aldi's 55p, long life stuff, absolutely great. Morrison's, you've got your soyas, your almonds. I mean, I tend to use oat milk because it's the one which is the best for the environment. But all of them, none of them have the cruelty involved in them that dairy do. So can you know, when you have so many choices, what is your excuse for having dairy? Why are you still having dairy in your tea and your coffee and ingredients, you know, and cakes and things? You know, why are you still eating cheese? Cheese and chocolate, exactly the same thing. These are all the big things that people feel as if we have to give up. There's so many brands out there, and if you don't like one version of chocolate, there's so many other versions. All the shops now have their own versions, and there's loads of luxury brands coming out there. There's absolutely loads of choice from all sorts of you know, like budget prices. So can you really say that a piece of cheese or that chocolate or that tea, that milk in your tea is worth an animal's life? Can you really honestly say that? Because it isn't. It just isn't. You know, the industry, the milk industry doesn't like us calling plant milk. Okay, I think on here it'll probably have an alternative to dairy. Yeah, okay. And other ones have soya drink rather than soya milk on. But it's absolutely ridiculous, you know. It's a bit like, you know, who calls a vacuum? Most of them call it a Hoover. You know, it's not a Hoover. It could be a Dyson, could be anything. Peanut butter isn't butter. You know, we can milk a situation, we can use it in colour terms, milky white, buttermilk paint. You know, we can the dairy industry is milking the truth. You know, you can use these words in lots of different contexts. You know, so I don't know why they're getting so, you know, up in arms about this. It's because they're trying to fight back, and this is the best they can come up with. You know, this is the best they can come up with, making things difficult for us. February Dairy, which is the dairy industry's response to Veganuary, is a massive failure. You know, it's people trying to convince us that drinking milk is good for you. It's not. It's good for the environment. It's not. It's part of a balanced diet. It's not. And it's cruelty free. It's not. These happy cows bouncing around in fields are not the cows who are producing your milk. Believe me, I've stood outside enough slaughterhouses to know that is not the case. Okay. Now, there's loads of sources for you to find out. I've mentioned a few things here for you to have a look at, for you to do your own research. Joey Carbstrong has just done a really, really poignant, absolutely devastating YouTube film of it's like an undercover investigation of the dairy industry. It's very graphic, but you know, if you're drinking milk, I would say you need to watch it, okay? Because if you can't watch how your milk is being produced, you shouldn't be drinking it, okay? But other things you can look for is the British Journal of Cancer mentioned, World Health Organization, Viva, the Dairy Free Guide, why you don't need dairy. Follow people like Jackie Norman, who we interviewed a few weeks ago. You know, ex-dairy farmer, haunted by what she, you know, the flashbacks she has from what she did in the past. Now making massive, you know, she's a huge animal advocate, and she's absolutely fantastic. And people like Jay Wilde, Rebecca Knowles, these are all people who have been on the other side and have realised what I'm saying is the truth, that it is wrong. It's fundamentally wrong. So please, you know, look these people up, follow them. Look at things like Reformed. This is what Kevin's mentioned. Reformed, Jay Wilde and Katya Wilde and Ethel and Ed are part of Reformed, looking at alternatives for dairy farmers. And Rebecca Knowles does the Farmers for Stock-Free Farming. There's absolutely loads of things out there now. You know, the farmers do not need to be killing animals. You know, we understand that it's, you know, it's a generational thing, that they've been doing it for absolutely ages. But times have changed. The industry has changed, and so has the demand for milk changed. Okay, so they need to move with the times now. Now, I'm going to finish off by saying, you know, more and more people are waking up to the truth. You know, please make sure that you're one of them. Please do your research, check the facts, and ditch dairy. So thank you very much for listening to all of that. I'm going to sign off now. Please take a moment to think of this ahead of, obviously, Mother's Day, which is why we timed it for this week. And thank you for watching. Goodbye.